All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1,000,000 Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Brad Gibb. Brad, man, welcome. So awesome to have you today.
Kevin, I appreciate the invite to be on here. So I'm excited and honored, and this is going to be a fun conversation.
It is. It is absolutely going to be. And the cool thing about this, I got to give a shout out to John Davey, because John and I have become really close friends over the last few years. And John was the one that messaged me and was like, Kev, you got to interview Brad for the podcast. And what's really cool about this is, Brad, you and I just now experienced this because we have this mutual friend in John. You and I, even though this is our first time ever meeting, ever talking, it feels like we've been friends for years, man, because we got this mutual friend.
The thought just popped into my head as you were talking about that. Like, there's a speed to connection that comes from having a mutual friend that, like you said, we didn't even know each other until 15 minutes ago. And you're right. There's instant connection and backstory and alignment on so many things, to where I was just scratching my head to be like, wow, like it's almost like we collapsed a decade of time getting to know each other simply because we have a great mutual friend in John. That's pretty cool.
Yes. And I'll tell you, for a guy like me who has been that connector, this guy who facilitates relationships that impact millions of people, I've been doing this for years. And now to like experience it with other people so much as a result of hosting this podcast is just really cool. And it is such a testament to the power of relationships, as well as the speed of trust that happens because of relationships. And so, another great example there. And Brad, what I'd like to do is start off by turning it over to you to let you set a little bit of context here and talk a little bit about what you guys do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you get to do. And we'll just start there. And who is Brad Gibb, and what is Brad all about?
Well, awesome. Yeah, I'll start on the business side, and then we'll get into the personal side a little bit as well. Okay. Anytime somebody says, my audience is entrepreneurs, or I spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs, or that's kind of like, I'm immediately game. I'm in it. That's definitely the world that I spend, all of my time swimming in. I grew up very entrepreneurial. I grew up on a family farm in Eastern Washington. You and I, you're in Washington State, so we were kind of reminiscing there. And I don't know if there's any more entrepreneurial environment, than a family farm, right? No instruction manual. You got a little bit of baling wire, a little bit of duct tape, and you got to go out and make it happen. So that's definitely my, my training and background. But as I left the farm, the farm factory is kind of that you got to have a lot of kids to work it, and then not all the kids can stay because it doesn't support, that. So I got kind of kicked out of the nest, or actually kind of chose out of that. My little brother's now running the farm, and it was in his blood from the beginning. But went to school. Ended up loving numbers and analysis and that kind of thing. So I got an accounting degree and then I got a master's degree, and then I got a stats degree and an econ degree, and all the numbers. That's kind of how I'm definitely wired. So I'll get to it, but this whole idea of creating relationships, I was late to the game in learning this, right? I just thought math, like if we just have the right answer, then, that's what drives everything, is just 2 + 2 = 4. But anyway, that got started in the wealth side of things, spent some time at Goldman Sachs. I actually had a front row seat to the 2008 meltdown. I was at Goldman Sachs in New York City.
Wow.
Next door, our building was next door to the Lehman Brothers building. And the day they collapsed, we woke up and they were gone. I was walking down the sidewalk and they start filing out of the building with a cardboard box. So needless to say, I learned a lot by being able to watch what was going on there. It brought up a lot of what wealth really means to me, why I'm in the industry that I'm in, what I'm really working to accomplish. And ultimately it was a wake up call enough that, I ended up with a Jerry Maguire moment of like, hey, I'm out, I'm leaving. I got to find something that isn't kind of all of this. So we've taken, kind of an anti-Wall Street approach, not from a standpoint of like, conspiracy or tinfoil hat or too much of that, but just the way wealth is done, especially for the entrepreneur, is not served in traditional finance, in traditional planning, in the traditional wealth education space. The entrepreneurial minded type person is just not served there. So I left, started a business. That's where my my own entrepreneurial journey started. Started a consulting firm. We took companies public. We were kind of CFOs for hire in a couple niche industries, and did that for a little while. And then kind of fully transitioned over into how we would call it, the wealth education space, or a wealth coaching space, which doesn't really exist. We're trying to make it exist, I think, more than it does, because we're not assets under management. It's not give us your money and we'll do the best we can with it or any of that. It's really, how can we pour into an entrepreneur? Because we see so many times that it's almost like that professional athlete syndrome, or that lottery syndrome, right? Where somebody comes into a lot of success very, very quickly, and then they don't have the skill set to manage the financial and the money and the making decision side. And especially in the entrepreneurial game, the skill sets required to make money, right? Grow a business, grow top line, have revenue coming in. It's not the same skill set required to then keep the money that's coming into our lives and then manage it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we work to fill the gap with. We work with mostly founder level or early entrepreneurs that they're just starting to realize those pains. They look at it and be like, oh, we did 7 figures, and where did all the money go? I thought there would be more impacting my own personal life from this. And so we're here to help build that bridge between business success and personal individual wealth, right? And there's a very specific strategy and a methodology and a formula to doing that. But again, it's not intuitive. It's not served in the broader general wealth space. And so that's kind of where we come in. And then we have an array of services that help implement, when and if necessary. But really our product is the entrepreneur themselves, helping them understand, raise their financial IQ, and build what we call their 100-year plan. We want to build wealth. Our focus is we want to use the business, blood, sweat, tears, soul that you've poured into that to build something that will last 100 or more years. And that's kind of the vision that we take with it.
Wow. Wow. Very cool. Well, Brad, that was a great setting of the stage, if you will, for what, for kind of like what inspires you to do what you do. And what you said is so dead on right. And I first experienced this back in 2008, 2009, when this meltdown was happening. Mm-hmm. My previous business, the publishing company, was growing like crazy at that time. Mm-hmm. And in fact, 2008 was the first year we broke $1 million in gross sales that year. And what you said is so accurate, that how we make money in business, the skill set required to do that has absolutely nothing to do with the skill set that's required in keeping it once we've made and growing it from there. Yep. That it's, what do you want to call it? Business, investor, whatever. This skill set over here is entirely different. And I learned that the hard way. I lost a shit ton of money by doing the wrong stuff,
Yep. Yep. No, it is. Yeah. That usually resonates, especially, that we call it the difference between income and wealth, right? Like income, the make money side of it, is very different than building true and lasting wealth. So for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, Brad, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that have completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Brad, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
That's a both powerful and slightly uncomfortable question, especially for me. Like I said, I'm very much wired analytical. And I get accused a lot of, one of my clients actually heard me say on a training, got a little fired up. And I was like, look, math doesn't care about your feelings. Like it is what it is. And and he actually put my face on a mug and sent it to me with the quote bubble that says math doesn't care about your feelings. So I do get accused a lot of, not leading with relationship and not leading with that. But the more somebody gets to know me and the more we spend time together, definitely a different side of me comes out. And you said it, like, is there a relationship that motivated something? And as I look at what I pursue and what I do and the way that we do it and the type of person we work with, if you strip away the math, if you strip away the analysis and the spreadsheets and the tools and the stuff that on the surface of what it looks like, is really, I think everything comes down to, we're trying to build and develop relationships. That's why most people want more money or want to transition to wealth, is so that they can enjoy their relationships, or they can invest in those relationships and they can grow those. And so it actually, again, deeper down under the surface, because it's not what I lead with, really relationships are the motivator. I asked you if we needed to bucket this beforehand. So I'm going to go ahead and bucket it, just in case any of these people are listening and might get the idea that they're not my most important relationship. but then I will share about the one that absolutely transformed the business side of me, for sure. But God is my top relationship that I value and work on the most. That's a given. And second to that is my spouse. And I'm fortunate enough to have a spouse that, I think you're one of two people I know that have more kids than I do. We've got 6, you've got 7. So we're both crazy. But having a spouse, like, none of my success would exist if I didn't have a relationship that I could rely on to the extent that I can with the most important aspects of my life. Right. And we don't look at, while she doesn't, work, and I put in air quotes, work, right? She doesn't receive a paycheck. She's not on a lot of what we do from a business standpoint. Like, the only reason I can be here with you is because my wife's running my kids to dance right now. That's what's actually important. Right. And I feel like I serve her ability to build, if you really ask me generational wealth, one little side story, and then I'll get to the point that everybody really wants to hear. We come from a long generational line of people. We know our genealogy. We know where we came from. We know our backstories. And we just recently, 2 years ago, had what probably will be the final family reunion on this side, because now the matriarch and patriarch have both since passed away just recently. Okay. And they did something that was interesting. They took everybody that attended, everybody in their family tree, and everybody got a number on the back of their shirt in the order of, so it was like 1 and 2 were grandma and grandpa. And then they had 8 kids. And so they were, 2 through 10. And then in order, grandkids and great grandkids, as they were born, they all got numbers. And it was really neat. So grandma and grandpa are 1 and 2. My wife is number 20. So that's where she falls in it. Our oldest child, I think our youngest child is number 107.
Wow.
Like, that's exponential.
That is huge
Growth, right? And transformation. So I will just say, like, those are the relationships that I'm working to invest in and create. And I actually feel like all of the work I do and what I'm building is actually supporting that much bigger mission. Not the other way around. My wife doesn't support me. I support her in that. So I'm going to put those buckets out there. So if anybody listens to it and says, hey, your husband didn't say that you were the most important relationship, I got myself covered. But the relationship I want to talk about is my business partner. His name's Ryan Lee. We're in business together. And the couple of things, and you guide me in this conversation, Kevin, with any questions of pull on threads and help me tell the story. But for me, in that entrepreneurial journey, I did realize very quickly I was not cut out to do it on my own. I was not a lone wolf type person. And a lot of it came down to, I knew where my skill sets lied, but I recognized I had very large gaps in other areas. And I was I wanted to be really good at what I was good at, but not have to do areas that I'm not. And so I hesitated and waited and spun my wheels and didn't move quickly enough until I found somebody that could complement me in that. And then I felt like I could jump and take on the entrepreneurial side of things. So without that relationship, without, a lot of people are the lone wolf. They get started on their own. They defy all the odds. And then relationships come later. Mine all started at a relationship in a mastermind meeting that I had, met Ryan there. And it was a wealth mastermind. We were learning how to invest in real estate, and we were bouncing ideas off together. And we spent 6 or 8 months in this mastermind, and we got to know each other personally and what drove us and what our goals are, what our motivations were. And then we worked alongside each other for 2 years in the same industry. And then that solidified enough to where we both needed each other's skill sets and each other's trust. Like, I always look at him, I'm like, you are 100 times smarter than I am. And so if you believe in me, then I guess I should, like, I believe in Ryan more than I believe in me. And he looks at me and is like the same way. He's like, I have 100 times more trust in you than I might even in myself. And so we sort of put that together. And for both of us, that was what was needed to jump in and work to carve out a niche and a business model and the way that we work with clients that really we don't believe exists anywhere else. And it is really the unique yin and yang product of the two of us. So I would say that relationship transformed my ability to become an entrepreneur, that my own self-confidence to be able to push into and make decisions and again, just do all of the things that we do and then keep me, we're accountability partners at the same time. So he keeps me in the gym. He keeps me taking time with my family. He keeps me grounded in all of that. So all the way around, I don't know where I'd be. Like, there's just no way we'd be anywhere unless I had an amazing business partner in Ryan.
Wow. And I'm sure that, if I were to talk with Ryan or interview Ryan for this, it would be really interesting to hear it from his perspective too. The like you said, the yin and the yang of this, because it's really cool to see how you have placed such a high value on this relationship with you and Ryan. And you guys just have so much appreciation for not just for each other, but for each other's skill sets that you've possessed and developed and fine-tuned and honed over the years, that now, you were able to bring that together and have a far bigger impact together than either one of you could possibly have on your own. And so I am going to ask just one more question, because this will really, I love really looking at the power and the impact of relationships. And so I want you to look at just in looking at all that's happened over the time that you and Ryan have got to know each other and become partners and all of that. If you look at all of that's transpired, what is an example of one thing that has transpired where the two of you were able to make this big impact together that, hands down would have never happened if not for the relationship that you and Ryan have?
Oh yeah, that's an easy one. So, he and I, before ever meeting, we didn't really realize this, but we were on parallel paths that had not yet crossed, right?
Okay.
I was going through, I went through 2008. He went through his version of 2008. He was in a very different spot than I was, but learned similar lessons, came to similar conclusions, pushed into similar learning. And he spent time learning and diving in, and I was doing, and they were very complementary. And then when our paths finally did cross, then we just continued to geek out and nerd out about these concepts of wealth and finance and money and freedom and everything that we end up teaching. But it wasn't until we, and he challenged me on it to where he's like, we've got to get this information out somehow. And we kind of looked, do we write a book? Do we have a podcast? And it came down to we're pretty good on video and prepared presentations that way. And so we decided to create our first ever course, right? Teaching our philosophy of wealth.
Okay.
And that's a fairly large, like, what is money? Gosh, that's a big, right? A huge question. But we ended up recording, it turned into a lot. It's now the basis of everything that our companies have become. It's grown off of this foundation, but in a matter of less than 90 days, we were able to record well over 15 hours, about 120 different, video segments, all linking together, and again, it just became the foundation of what we were then able to launch into the marketplace and attract attention and acquire clients and grow our business all off of that one thing. But if it wasn't for Ryan's ability to pull my thoughts and sit us down and go through it, I would have just kept learning more, right? And perfecting it and tweaking it. And he is the let's take action and then think about it, where I'm the let's aim, ready, aim some more, aim a little bit, then ready and aim. And so that shift then again taught me a lot about myself, of what's necessary to deliver, valuable, meaningful, impactful legacy type. Like, that block of content is our legacy and will be forever. It will be books. It will be continued courses. It's changed the lives of the thousands and thousands of clients we've worked with. It's responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth. All because he sat down and was like, why don't we get this out of our heads? Because our ability to speak with somebody is what's holding back having a greater impact. So let's get over ourselves. Let's get over our lack of technology and abilities and get people around us. And let's get this out so that we're not holding back this any longer. And that's where, if you talk about exponential impact from a relationship, from that conversation, now we're impacting, like I said, tens of thousands of lives, hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth, right? Family generations are changing and being secured because that relationship kicked it off.
Wow. What an amazing example. And, I love asking that secondary question, because it really, it wasn't like you didn't make a case for the relationship for you and Ryan before, but like that right there, now it's like, because I think a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, we don't really look at, and you and Ryan truly do not know the real impact you've had of how many lives, because you've got whoever you're working with closest, but how many people beyond that, their families, their spouses, their kids, other people in their lives that you don't even know you guys are impacted, but are definitely being impacted by the work you're doing frontline with those that you serve, but yet the ripple effects of that. And how, I can tell you right now, I can get emotional about this stuff, but because I figured shit out years ago and figured out how to build a successful business, and some of the things, we started a family foundation in 2008. And I, quite honestly, that was the first year we broke $1 million in sales. And I was looking for a tax break. That was my motivation for starting a family foundation, is I wanted to minimize my tax bill that year.
Yeah.
That was my motivation. And we got her done. We got our 501(c)(3) status before the end of the year. And I dumped a bunch of money into that foundation that I did not have to pay taxes on, and for me, I was like, dodged that. And I felt good about it. But about a couple months later, the company that helped us do that, it was a company called the Stewardship Institute. And they were now in touch with us. And they told us about a workshop that they were hosting down in Nevada. And my wife read that and she goes, I want to go to this workshop. And I'm like, what is it? She goes, it's a bunch of family foundation owners getting together to share ideas. And I'm like, okay. I was like, you can go. And she goes, no, you're going
Me.
too. And I'm like, okay. I was like, we'll go. And I'm going to tell you what, Brad, at the end of that workshop and hearing what all these families were doing through their family foundations, I felt like such a schmuck. I'm like, man, you were just looking for a tax break, but look at what these
Look at what's
families are all
possible.
doing. I said, I want to experience that. And
Huh.
since then, we have done so many amazing things. My kids, we got an orphanage down in Jamaica that we support. We've been supporting them for years. My wife found some lady online writing a blog talking about her and her kids went to this orphanage in Jamaica. And my wife comes like, I want to go to that orphanage in Jamaica. And I want to take our whole family down there. And I want all the kids to go to the orphanage in Jamaica. And so we took our older kids, their spouses, our younger kids, and we've been doing it ever since. And I got this picture. My son Brock just turned 15 last week. We went there to that orphanage for the first time when he was 3 years old. So that would have been 12 years ago was the first time we ever went, 2011. He's 3 years old. I've got this picture of him at this orphanage surrounded by all these other kids. And he's the only white kid in the bunch, and he's completely oblivious to the whole fact. He's just like, he's loving it. Look at all these kids I get to play with, you know?
Yeah.
And now, years later, we have taken, our kids have grown. They've talked about it with their friends. We've taken our kids as friends on trips down there. We've taken our extended family, nieces and nephews on trips. My niece one year went with us. She came home. She wrote a school report about her experience that brought me to tears, man, about her writing about this experience that she had. And you know, you have no idea the impact that you're really making, but it's huge. It's massive. And you guys, I'm sure, are just getting started, you know, and I love really looking at this stuff of the power of relationships, because I have long believed that as entrepreneurs, relationships are our most valuable asset.
Well, Kevin, and I mean, you're 100% right. Like when you really think about it, anytime people get together and talk, like nobody pulls out their bank account, and that's not what you talk about, right? And it is, we have like this. We have this conversation. We learn about this orphanage, right? I tell you, last summer we did the first time for our family, we went and built houses in Mexico, right? Similar, very, very similar, you know, type of idea and experience. And it's relationships and experiences. But Kevin, I'm going to ask you a quick question, because I struggle with this, and this is your zone of genius, right? Like I struggle opening the door to the relationship, right? So as a closed off, you know, antisocial, maybe a little shy entrepreneur, or we know the entrepreneur world is lonely, right? Which is why I feel fortunate that I found the business partner that I found as early on as I found it, because I think the longer I went, the harder it would have been to find and have that end up working out. So I just feel lucky that ended up working out that way for me. But like, what is the advice for lonely business owners to build and develop relationships? Where can I go? What do I do to improve those? Yeah, give me something, because like I said, I'll do math. I'll impress you with my math skills. But at the end of the day, I find myself running up against you know, my own internal barriers to creating, and really realizing, like, if I look at my deficits, it's like, man, I got to double down on relationships. What do we do there?
Yeah. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, but I'll just give you, you know, the first and most important thing that I can tell you that I've discovered, and the way to start, you know, just the way to just genuinely start a relationship with somebody we don't know, or even start like a more intentional relationship with somebody that we already know or know of, is this whole concept of active appreciation. Because it doesn't matter how successful somebody is, how big of a business they run, how great things look from the outside looking in. There is not a person on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation. And that's a huge.
Boy, that's an understatement, isn't it?
and just like I'm going to suggest that you definitely, when I get you the recording of this interview, share it with Ryan, share it with your wife, let him know, let him hear what you said about him behind your back, because that ain't a bad thing, man. And I challenge people regularly. We have cell phones with plenty of contacts, and those can be business contacts, it can be family, it can be friends, whatever, it doesn't matter. What I challenge people to do, to experience this for the first time ever, send messages to 10 people that are in your phone. It doesn't matter whether it's business contacts, family, or friends. And in those messages, you're going to let each person know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. And you're not going to ask for anything in return. You're not even going to ask for a response in return. You're going to send out 10 messages in 24 hours, just sending out some love. And you watch what happens. And I'm going to tell you, you will have an amazing experience. You will also come to the realization, I facilitated that. I caused that to happen by the way that I showed up. And I can show up that way anytime I want.
Yeah. I mean, active appreciation, right? I could be active in that, not passive. I love that. All right. I'll find 10 people in the next 24 hours and I'll send it out.
And I'll tell you what, when you do that, Brad, get a hold of me. I'd love to make time to talk with you one-on-one and hear about your experience. And anybody else listening to this, I'm easy to find. I'm on Facebook, Kevin the Connector on Facebook. Don't waste your time sending me a friend request, but if you do this active appreciation exercise, shoot me a message, tell me about your experience, and you do that, you'll get my attention, and I'll man, we should talk. I want to get to know you more,
Yeah.
Do that first, and then send me a message and tell me about your experience. And
I love it. That's a great challenge.
That's the first time, Brad, I've ever done that on a podcast.
Hey, I think it's good because, like I said, I like to do things. I like to be moving, and I think all of us as entrepreneurs do. And I definitely need coaching and guidance and a little bit of prodding to make my relationships better. Because just sitting here thinking about, every transformational moment in my life, in my business, centered around a relationship, right? It wasn't learning something. It was taking action, and it involved another human being and a relationship there. And so if I want more transformation, it stands to reason I should probably invest more in some relationships. So I'll take you on the challenge. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, Brad, for anybody listening to this going, dang, Kev, I really like Brad. I like what he shared. I like what he stands for. How can they find out more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So like I said, I don't make it easy to get a hold of me directly. So I know I'm on the socials and I'm on Facebook and that kind of stuff, but I like you. I don't really interact there a bunch, but I have the company that we're most, front facing and forward is called Cash Flow Tactics. So you can look us up there. Cash Flow Tactics. We have a Facebook group. We have a podcast called the Rise Up Live Free podcast. You can listen to us talk about our wealth ideals and strategies and what we do there. And then in the very near future, probably by the time this launches, we'll have a challenge out. We have a kind of a 5-day financial challenge that you can take and work on. But that's probably the best way to start kind of getting into our world about what we're doing and exploring more from there. We got tons of resources there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Brad, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today, to share from your heart. You have definitely, you have helped to deliver on this promise. I just want to inspire other entrepreneurs to place an intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their life. And with your help, we've definitely delivered on that today. So thank you for that. Any last thing you want to share before we call it a wrap?
Just thanks for having me on, Kevin. This is
man.
Outside of kind of the normal podcast I'm used to having, but man, I feel lighter. I feel refreshed. I feel excited. It was a really great change of pace for me. And I appreciate you putting something this interesting and neat and unique together, and just feel happy to be a part of it.
Well, thanks again, Brad. Appreciate you.